In a faraway continent, the red-hooded man seared his wounds from the lion's claws, using the heat to staunch the bleeding, while the bald man stood over the unconscious Kira, torn between killing him or capturing him. A shockwave blasted from Kira's body, launching the bald man off his feet. Rising again, now determined to kill Kira, he sensed the dangerous energy radiating from the boy. A primal force erupted from Kira's unconscious body, rippling through the battlefield like the heartbeat of nature itself. The air crackled with electricity, arcs of lightning dancing around him. The earth trembled as jagged roots and stone shards burst from the ground, pulsing with raw energy. Flames flickered and spiraled in a mesmerizing dance, while streams of water coiled around him like protective serpents. The wind howled, swirling in a furious vortex, carrying whispers of an ancient power long forgotten. The bald man staggered back, his instincts screaming at him to retreat, but his warrior's pride urged him forward. He summoned his massive crystal hammer, channeling all his strength into a single crushing blow. As the hammer fell, an unseen force met it head-on. An explosion of elemental fury surged outward. Fire and ice collided in a violent hiss, wind and earth shattered against each other, and thunder roared through the sky. The impact sent the bald man hurtling backward, crashing into a tree with such force that it split in two as the bald man struggled to stand. He noticed the red-hooded man staring at Kira. Kira's body was now floating in the air, his eyes closed, with a halo of shifting colors encircling him. Dark clouds gathered above, unleashing a heavy rain. The bald man drew a sharp, mysterious black dagger from his belt and declared, "This will end you." Mustering all his strength, he hurled the dagger at Kira. The red-hooded man intensified the flames around the dagger, increasing its speed, turning it into a blazing missile. Just before it could strike, Kira's eyes snapped open, glowing with an unnatural brilliance. In that instant, the air howled, and the sky itself seemed to split apart, birthing a storm that swallowed the battlefield whole. A fierce windstorm erupted, swirling around Kira like a massive tornado. The dagger was caught in the storm, spinning wildly like a toy before vanishing into the raging winds. The winds grew stronger, uprooting nearby trees and lifting both the bald man and the red-hooded man into the air, where they struggled to find their footing. They hurled fireballs and crystal weapons at Kira, but the powerful winds deflected everything, sending their attacks spiraling back toward them. Thunder roared, and lightning flashed, shattering airborne trees into splinters. The bald man, clutching a large crystal shield, tried to protect himself from the flying debris, but a massive bolt of lightning pierced through his shield, striking him with a deafening crack. His body convulsed violently as the electricity surged through him, and with a horrifying sizzle, his right shoulder and leg were torn from his body. The red-hooded man screamed in rage and terror, unleashing a fiery onslaught, desperate to burn both the tornado and Kira within it. The battlefield transformed into chaos, a giant black smoke tornado swirling with thunderstorms, while streaks of red fire spread through the dark clouds. As the fire approached Kira, he reached out to it. His fingers grazed the rushing flames. Instead of burning him, they twisted, surged, and morphed, as if recognizing him as their master. The fire roared to life, spreading faster, devouring everything within the storm. The red-hooded man's screams grew desperate as the fire consumed him, his voice fading as he cried, "No! What kind of fire is this?" The intense flames melted both him and the bald man. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the windstorm ceased. Everything crashed to the ground in eerie silence. Kira, suspended in the air for one last moment, then collapsed, his body hitting the ground like a fallen star. Meanwhile, nearby, Kairos and Ronan were traveling by cart, eagerly discussing their future at a prestigious martial arts school. After showing promise in a small village tournament, they had set out to seize this opportunity. The cart rumbled along a dirt road cutting through a dense forest, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. They were in the middle of a spirited debate about combat styles when the cart came to a sudden halt. A deafening roar filled the air, followed by a massive explosion of wind and lightning. Trees bent violently, and the sky crackled with unnatural energy. What in the world is that? Ronan gasped, staring wide-eyed at the storm swirling in the distance. The cart driver, gripping the reins tightly, muttered, "That storm! It came out of nowhere, and it's not natural." His voice carried a hint of fear. "We shouldn't get too close. Best to go around it." Kairos, ever the curious one, leaned forward. "Shouldn't we at least take a closer look? We might never see something like this again." "No," the driver said firmly. "It's too dangerous. Besides, today's the last day to apply to the martial arts school. We can't afford to waste time." Before Kairos could argue, the storm erupted in flames. A massive black tornado, streaked with crimson fire, consumed the sky. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. Ronan's breath caught in his throat. "Did you see that?" he whispered. "I swear I saw a child fall into the fire before it disappeared." Without hesitation, he jumped from the cart and sprinted toward the spot where the storm had raged. "Ronan, wait!" Kairos called after him, but he was already gone. With a frustrated sigh, Kairos followed, and the driver reluctantly trailed behind them. They arrived at the scene, where the earth was scorched black, steam rising from the smoldering ground. At the center of the devastation lay a boy, his body limp and unmoving. His clothes were tattered and burned, his breathing shallow. The cart driver knelt beside him, reaching out hesitantly. "He's alive," he murmured, though he quickly pulled his hand back. "He's still warm, unnaturally warm." Ronan wiped the sweat from his brow. "We can't leave him here. We should take him with us." Kairos hesitated. Something about the boy felt strange, but after a moment he nodded. "Yeah, whatever happened here, he doesn't deserve to die alone." The driver sighed and carefully lifted the boy. Without another word, they returned to the cart. As the cart started moving again, Kira was lost in his dreams once more. This time, he found himself not in darkness but in a vast garden with a stone temple at its center. Near the temple's gate stood statues of warriors wielding different weapons. He entered the temple slowly, admiring the massive statues. As he moved deeper inside, he found himself in a large, empty hall. In each corner stood a door, each marked with one of the four main elements: fire, water, earth, and wind. Then he heard his father's voice again. "Kira, you've returned." Kira turned to see his father standing near one of the elemental gates, wrapping giant iron chains around the stone door. "Father, where am I? What is this temple?" Kira asked. Johann continued securing the gate as he answered, "You've made great progress, my son. I'm proud of you. Don't worry. I can help you now, but we'll take it slow." Kira looked at the chain doors, his stomach twisting with unease. "But I just unlocked my power. Why are we sealing them up again?" His voice held a hint of frustration. Johann glanced back at him with a calm smile, holding a golden key in his hand. "We're not taking them away, Kira. We're securing them. This time you hold the key." Kira clenched his fists. "But I felt so strong. I don't want to go back to being helpless." His memories of the battle flickered in his mind. The overwhelming energy, the destruction, the loss of control. Johann placed a firm yet reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Strength without control is dangerous, even to yourself. You weren't fighting, Kira, you were unleashing. That's why I'm here, to help you shape your power, not be consumed by it." Kira hesitated, his frustration battling against his father's words. He wanted to argue, to prove he was ready, but deep down he knew Johann was right. With a deep breath, he exhaled his tension and nodded. Johann gestured toward the statues of warriors. "For now, let's focus on your foundation. That's where I can help you the most." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the horse-drawn carriage rolled up to the grand entrance of Crimson Lotus Academy. The towering gates stood open, framed by stone pillars engraved with intricate symbols. Ronan leaned out eagerly. "We made it just in time. Come on, we don't want to miss our chance." Kairos stumbled out behind him, adjusting his bag. "Wait for me," he called as they both sprinted toward the academy. Inside the carriage, Kira stirred, his mind still clouded with exhaustion. The sound of their excited voices pulled him from his sleep. What school? Where am I this time? He wondered groggily. Blinking away the haze, he sat up and took in his surroundings. The carriage driver was tending to the horses nearby, and beyond him, the Grand Academy gates loomed. A large wooden sign above them read Crimson Lotus Academy. Slowly, Kira stepped down from the carriage and walked toward the entrance. But before he could pass through, a guard blocked his path. "Are you a beggar? Get lost." Kira froze, uncertain how to respond. He glanced down at his burnt and tattered clothes, realizing how ragged he must look. Before he could say anything, a firm but kind voice spoke from behind the guard. "Are you here to apply to the academy?" Kira turned to see a tall man dressed in elegant robes, his gaze steady and assessing. Kira hesitated, then nodded. The guard frowned. "Sir, look at him. He's dressed in rags. He doesn't belong here." The man gave the guard a sharp glance. "And yet, he stands before us." He turned back to Kira, his expression softening. "You look like you've had a long journey. What's your name?" Kira swallowed before answering. "My name is Kira." The man nodded approvingly. "Come with me, Kira. We'll get you some proper clothes. And don't worry, I'll personally handle your registration." Relief washed over Kira as he followed the man inside. After receiving a fresh set of clothes, he was shown to a dormitory. The room was lined with several neatly arranged beds, but he barely took it in. The moment he found an empty bed, he collapsed onto it, his exhaustion finally claiming him. Within seconds, he was fast asleep. As Kira slept, he drifted into a dream once more, finding himself in the warrior's temple. His father, Johann, stood waiting for him, his presence warm and steady. "Welcome back, my son," Johann greeted. Kira hesitated before asking, "Dad, is this real, or am I still dreaming?" Johann smiled. "This place is part of your spirit, Kira, and I am part of you now, just as all the fallen warriors are." Kira's eyes widened. "All the fallen warriors? But when I first arrived here, I heard my mother's voice. Is she also a spirit? His voice caught. Did she die?" Johann shook his head. "No, your mother is not of the warrior's race. Even if she had passed, she wouldn't be here. I believe she is still alive, trying to reach you through a magical link." Kira's expression hardened with determination. "Then I have to find her. I have to save her." Johann's gaze grew firm. "Laura did everything to protect you. You cannot waste her efforts. If you truly wish to help her, you must first master your powers." Before Kira could respond, a distant voice called out, pulling him from the dream. The next morning, Kira awoke to the sound of someone calling his name. Blinking, he found a guard standing over him. "You're late for the new student's test," the guard announced. Still groggy, Kira quickly dressed and followed him. They entered a dimly lit dojo, its wooden walls lined with torches casting flickering shadows. The guard gestured toward a stone platform. "You and 2 others were registered yesterday. One is already seated, and the other is about to begin his test." Kira noticed Ronan sitting on the side, who grinned and waved. "Hey, you're the kid we picked up on the way here. Glad you're up. Come sit. Kairos's test is about to start." Kira looked around, still adjusting. "What test?" Ronan pointed to the center of the dojo, where Kairos stood facing an imposing stone statue. "The magical mimic statue," he explained. "It'll replicate his fighting style, and the judge will evaluate his skill level." Kira's gaze locked onto the statue, a new sense of curiosity and anticipation rising within him.